Okay, let's dive right into this explainer, but fair warning, we're looking at things from a highly stressed point of view today. We're talking about the beautiful game from the perspective of the absolute most traumatized person on the pitch, the goalkeeper. We're going to explore the bizarre, totally frantic evolution of World Cup match balls. And get this, we're doing it by comparing their chaotic aerodynamics to the physiological effects of mind-altering substances. So, buckle up because this is going to be a wild, fast-paced ride.
Now, you might hear that and think, okay, this guy has completely lost his mind. What does taking LSD have to do with catching a soccer ball? Well, as a veteran keeper running on pure adrenaline and way too much caffeine, I'm here to tell you they both completely destroy your grip on physical reality. When a striker launches highly engineered synthetic plastic right at your face, those unpredictable flight paths don't just test your reflexes, they literally mess with your perception of time and space. These aren't just minor quirks, you know. These aerodynamic nightmares absolutely ruined high-stakes World Cup games and made the best athletes on the planet look, frankly, entirely foolish.
Let's map out this timeline of sheer aerodynamic terror from 2002 to 2026. This isn't just a history of sporting goods. Oh no, it's a rapid descent into absolute psychological chaos for anyone wearing goalie gloves. Every single ball brought a shiny new technological gimmick, and every single one forced defenders into a totally different, altered state of consciousness just to survive the 90 minutes.
It's actually wild how perfectly the chaotic physics of these iconic balls mirror the physiological highs and brutal come-downs of psychoactive drugs. From the hyperactive bounce of the 32-panel Fever Nova, which is basically a massive dose of caffeine, all the way to the 4-panel Trionda in 2026 acting like a digital disassociative. The engineering completely changes how the ball flies, which then totally alters the brain chemistry of the poor soul trying to catch it.
Section 1. Stimulants and Hyperactive Bounces.
We're kicking things off in 2002 with the stimulants. These are the balls that act like a massive dopamine flood for the strikers and an absolute jittery nightmare for us goalkeepers. So think about how stimulants actually work. Chemicals like caffeine enter your bloodstream and block adenosine, that's the chemical telling your brain you're tired. It doesn't give you real energy, it just hides your exhaustion so your neurons fire way faster. And that is exactly what the 2002 Fever Nova did. Adidas added these thick inner layers of synthetic foam to a 32-panel design, creating a hyperactive, sugary bounce that moved literally faster than words. It gave strikers this illusion of infinite, frantic power. Every shot was a lightning bolt.
I mean, when the legendary Gigi Buffon compares your elite match ball to a crazy bouncing heavy balloon, you know the aerodynamics are hitting the defense like a harsh chemical crash. The Fever Nova was just flying around like a hyperactive toddler. For the strikers, it was that instant rush of a caffeine peak. But for the keepers, total come down. Irritability, jitteriness, and that creeping realization that you have absolutely zero control over the situation.
And this brilliantly illustrates the extreme end of the stimulant spectrum, which we saw again years later with the 2022 Aurela. The onset of a strong drug floods your brain with dopamine. Pure euphoria, right? Well, the Aurela traveled faster in flight than any ball in history. The striker gets that instant dopamine hit of a perfect strike, and the goalkeeper gets a terrifying, immediate crash. You're burning out your own natural dopamine just trying to track a literal blur.
Moving right along to Section 2, Depressants and Sneaky Knuckleballs.
Stepping away from frantic speed, we enter 2006. The era of depressants. Now, depressants like alcohol disrupt how your brain communicates with itself. At first, it's great. You feel warm, confident, your body relaxes, and you feel like you're completely in control. But it's a total illusion. Your balance is actually fading, and your coordination is secretly slipping away. That heavy, false sense of security is exactly what it felt like standing across from the 2006 Teamgeist.
Adidas made a massive technological leap here, dropping from 32 panels down to just 14 thermally bonded, stitchless pieces. It was perfectly round and totally waterproof. It looked smooth, it felt smooth, it gave you confidence. But in the air, because it was so incredibly smooth, it acted exactly like a sneaky baseball knuckleball. The unpredictable swerve turned every single catch into this foggy, uncoordinated guessing game. Routine saves turned into embarrassing fumbles. Just like a depressant, it convinced you that you had it totally covered, right up until your judgment completely faded and the ball wildly slipped right past your gloves.
Which brings us to Section 3, Hallucinogenic Physics of the Jabulani.
Welcome to 2010, the absolute peak of my goalkeeper trauma. Hallucinogens like LSD bind to your serotonin receptors, and completely rewire how you process reality. It's not just seeing things. Reality itself starts to breathe. Time loses all meaning. Physical boundaries just dissolve. And just like a microscopic dose of LSD triggers that chaos in your brain, the 2010 Jabulani triggered total chaos on the pitch. Adidas dropped the panel count to 8 and added a grip and groove texture that was supposed to stabilize flight, but instead, it completely defied every single law of aerodynamics we knew.
Tracking a Jabulani shot was no joke like riding a bad trip. Think about the steps here. First, the kick. That's the onset. The striker hits it cleanly, feeling euphoria. Then, midair, the peak. The ball suddenly dips and swerves totally uncontrollably. It's pure visual hallucination. Your brain literally cannot process the physics of what it's seeing. And finally, the missed catch, the come down. Brutal, undeniable psychological panic as the ball hits the back of the net and your sense of professional self just completely dissolves.
It was pure nightmare fuel. Iker Casillas called it rotten. Julio Cesar said it was like a cheap supermarket ball. The absolute best keepers in the world were left out there swinging at ghosts. They were humiliated on a global stage, forced into a massive chemical-like hangover by sporting equipment that flat-out refused to obey gravity.
Thankfully, we reach Section 4, the calming Brazuca placebo.
Human nervous systems can only take so much panic, you know? By 2014, the engineers realized they had broken us, so they handed us the aerodynamic equivalent of a deep, calming sedative. Drugs like benzos work by enhancing GABA in the brain, which slows down activity, loosens your muscles, and brings this profound sense of calm and order. The 6-panel 2014 Brazuca was our GABA enhancer. Tested for over 2.5 years, it flew exactly where you kicked it. It silenced the hallucinations of the Jabulani and wrapped every goalkeeper in a soft, reliable blanket of peace. Finally, we could breathe again.
But peace never lasts. Section 5, disassociatives and digital soccer.
As we speed towards 2026, the game is fundamentally changing. We're moving away from physical touch and into this eerie, digital, out-of-body experience. Dissociative anesthetics like ketamine block a chemical called glutamate, detaching your perception entirely, so you feel like you're floating above your body, just watching life from a distance. And incredibly, the 2026 Trionda ball is doing the exact same thing to the sport itself.
This technology is completely detaching the human element from the game. We are down to an insane 4 thermally bonded panels. But the real trip is inside the ball. It contains a high-frequency motion sensor, sending real-time data directly to the VAR systems. The sensor is now making the calls for offsides and touches. It replaces the physical, human intuition of refereeing with digital omniscience. It leaves players feeling utterly disassociated, like they're just avatars watching a perfect simulation from afar.
And because of all this internal tech, we have arrived at the most absurd metric in sports history: 2%. There is a very real, incredibly undignified possibility that a World Cup kickoff could be delayed simply because the match ball is sitting at 2% battery and literally needs to be plugged into a wall outlet before anyone can play. You can't make this stuff up.
So as you try to catch your breath from this frantic sprint through 24 years of aerodynamic evolution and goalie trauma, ask yourself this. If the ball is just a digital sensor deciding the game while plugged into a wall, is the future of football a perfectly measured science? Or have we just completely disassociated from the beautiful, unpredictable, physical game we all fell in love with? Think about that next time you watch a striker line up a shot. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'm going to go ice my gloves.